So my name is Richard Myers. I'm Commercial Director of Transmit Startups. Transmit Startups provides business support, mentoring and finance to startup companies, startup businesses throughout England and Scotland. We tend to focus on the commercial and the creative and digital sectors, but we work with businesses from all different sectors.
My name's Ian Straker. I'm the Operations Director. And just to add to what Richard said, we all have a background in creative industries. So myself, my first business was running a record shop and a record label, and that's developed into a music PR company later on as well. Richard's got experience as running a digital and a design agency. And the third director, Damien, has got experience of running a music management company and also a publishing company as well. So we've got that kind of hopefully real hands-on experience of what it takes to start a creative business. And so we try and help people as much as possible who come and work with us with our own backgrounds.
A lot of people put off setting up businesses because they don't think it's a good time, but there's never a great time to set up a business. You've just got to do it. And, I don't think age really comes into it or experience, because everybody has to set up their first business. I think a lot of people need to remember that, generally your first business is not going to be a massive success, but it's going through that process of learning what business is about, what business does, what an entrepreneur does on a day-to-day basis, thinking strategically and learning as you go along. And if your first business doesn't work out, doesn't matter. If you're still passionate about running a business, give it another go with something else. If that one doesn't work, give it another go with something else. And it's quite common for successful entrepreneurs to have a whole string of businesses behind them. I think I'm probably onto my fifth or sixth company now, and I'm 42 and I'm still learning. So it's more about the passion and the drive that the person has to keep you going, I think.
Yeah, I was just going to say exactly the same at the end. The passion and the drive is what really matters, I think. Something that you can just get up and want to do all day, every day, and just be always pushing forward and looking for new ways and new sort of opportunities to expand what you're good at creatively. I think fundamentally it originally comes down to having a great idea that you believe in, and after that it's about just doing the hard work, doing the research. I certainly wouldn't advise that people just chase every little hobby they have because they like a bit of painting here, or they like a bit of music making on the weekend. But if you've got those skills and you can see that there's some evidence of demand for your service, then any time is a good time.
I think probably the most important thing for anybody to have is resilience. That really, to me, sort of tests somebody's commitment to running a business, because you're going to get your backside kicked along the way many times, and businesses don't work out. But sometimes you have to have this attitude of, well, so what, that I've learned from that, I'll move on. But you've got to have the resilience to pick yourself up and continue, and regardless of what happens, that you're going to continue down that path of running your own business and being your own sort of master of your own destiny, really.
Tough one, and I think that's a challenge that a lot of creative people kind of come up against. For me, to begin with, it's about just doing a bit of research and figuring out what's involved in running a business. I would say, not being afraid to go and find help from other people. You don't have to have every single skill in order to run a business. So if bookkeeping is not your thing, then go and find someone who can help on that side of things. If you need a lawyer to help with contracts and that kind of thing, to make sure that everything you're doing is watertight, then look to go and work with other experts so that you can first of all focus on your skill and your creativity and not get sidetracked or derailed or put off by any of the sort of business things which can scare people sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky one, because a lot of people come into the creative sector, they're passionate about what they do, which is great, because you should always be passionate about what you do. Otherwise your business becomes really boring and becomes a drag. You might as well work for somebody else. So if you've got that passion, that's great. Unfortunately, not a lot of creative hobbies can be converted into a business, so you need to be mindful of whether you actually have a business in the first place or whether it's just a hobby that might make a little bit of money. So that's a tricky thing to get over. But again, sometimes you just got to try it, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But you've given it a go. And kind of relate to what Ian was saying, is there's a lot of people, if you're a glass maker or you're a web designer or you're a filmmaker, you're really passionate about it, you love doing it, as soon as you set up a business, you realise that maybe 50% of your time, or as much as 75% of your time, is actually spent doing business stuff. So you need to bear that in mind as well. You might only spend 25% of your time actually doing the stuff that you love, because alongside that you've got to do all your business development, your sales and marketing, you've got to look after your clients, you've got to do all your finances, you've got to look after admin. So there's a lot of stuff around that. So it's being prepared to do the boring stuff, or the stuff that you don't like doing, or the stuff that you feel uncomfortable doing as well. Obviously, if you build up a business, then you would take on people and employ people who are better at certain things than you. But when you first start out, it's generally you or your business partner, and you've got to do all of that stuff. So it's kind of it pays to be mindful that it's not just going to be about shooting film all day long, or painting all day long, or building websites. You've got all the business stuff around that.
Sometimes the document itself isn't the really important thing. What's important is going through the thinking process, so thinking about what your marketing plan might be, thinking about who your customers are, thinking about who your competitors are, and how you're going to kind of fit into the market alongside them while also appealing to your customers. And 9 times out of 10, once you actually start running the business, you don't follow the business plan word for word, but you've done all that required thinking to get to a position where you know the areas you're going to be looking, and you know some ideas around your marketing, and you can then sort of adapt as you go along, having just been through that thought process. So for me, it's the document's useful, and you can always keep going back to it, and you can look up things, or you can decide whether something's worth exploring further, but it's more about the process of going through putting that together.
Yeah, I mean, we work with so many creative people, and sometimes the last thing a person wants to do when they're setting up a business is write a bloody business plan, because it can be quite a long task. It can be quite an arduous task, and be quite dull, to be honest. So what we've devised is a thing called a creative business canvas, which is kind of distilling all the information that you would have in a business plan into a nice graphical format. So you just drop content into relevant boxes, and it's got in a plan, a nice A3 sheet, and we use that in workshops, and that tends to it doesn't feel too overwhelming for people. You see it on one page and think, well, I can do that. You still go through the same process, but it means that you don't necessarily have to produce a 20 or 30 page business plan document, because it's not the be all and end all. As Ian says before, it changes, your business changes. So little tools like that, like the canvas that we produce, certainly help people, particularly creative people.
Yeah, I think the same applies to the financial side of things as well. It's not about the exact numbers that go on in the spreadsheet at the end of the day. It's about thinking through all the different expenses you may incur, the different options and sales channels you have to actually bring money in, and just getting a feel and a grip for that. The fact that it ends up presented in a spreadsheet can look a little scary, but actually once you start working through that and thinking through how the numbers work out, then it becomes quite clear, and it's a useful way of thinking about how your business will operate.
I think real true entrepreneurs have that sort of real strength deep down, knowing that no matter what happens, they'll continue. And I don't know anybody who hasn't suffered. I've been running businesses for over 20 years now, and I know lots of people who've been running businesses the same length of time. And personally, I've had lots of hardships along the way. I've had times where I haven't been able to pay my mortgage. I've had times where I've nearly had to hand my car back. I've had to borrow money off friends and family. But that's the journey. That's the journey. That's what happens when you're in business. Everybody suffers from cash flow problems at one point, whether they're a small operation, or medium, or large organisation. That happens. It's just been, I think it's been mentally strong. It's not been overwhelmed by problems that come along. It's been able to sit down and think through things, realise that it's not the end of the world. Life's going to go on, but kind of relate to what Ian was saying before, is having a good team of people around you as well. Because if you're a sole trader, you working in your bedroom at home, it's really tough. You can feel very isolated. You don't have people to bounce ideas off. So use your network of business people. Most people are happy to give you a bit of time just to, you know, if they know you're having a tough time, they're happy to give up an hour or two just to talk through things. And we do it all the time informally outside of the mentoring program that we run. So yeah, it's about just being strong, being resilient, realizing it's not the end of the world. You know, I say business is really important to me. You know, it has been for many years. But when I'm doing workshops and stuff, I say to people, it's only business. You know, it's in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter when things go wrong. And most things can be rectified as well. Most problems can be rectified.
If you're on the fence, then think about it carefully, but don't be scared by it. So try and think kind of quite rationally about what it is that's attracting you to it and what it is that's sort of scaring you or worrying you about self-employment, and then try and make an objective decision based on that. Being self-employed is fantastic. The freedom is great. You get to kind of pick and choose what you do to an extent, but the downsides obviously are that, you know, it's your sort of neck on the line at the end of each month. You've got to generate the business to survive. So it's a tricky one, and I think sometimes if people have been in employment, it can seem like a great nirvana of freedom and happiness, but equally, you know, there's some trepidation there around, you know, what happens if things don't quite go to plan because there's no guaranteed income each month. I don't think there's any black and white situation where you can say do it for this reason, don't do it for that reason. It's all about just weighing up what's in front of you, the opportunity versus the risk, and kind of just seeing how that fits with your current circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, what he said really, but I would just say just do it. If you don't do it, you'll regret it. It's as simple as that. You'll soon know whether it's right for you or not. If it's not right, ditch it, go back to employment. But once you're doing it, you know, if you're really passionate about running your own business and being an entrepreneur, you'll soon know that it's right for you and continue.